Morning. Welcome to my commute. We're talking about being a great panelist and what makes a wonderful panel. So the key with panels, I live in Austin where we have South by Southwest, which is king of panels, many of which are horrible and awful and forgettable. The key with panels is to strike a balance between entertaining and informative. We want a little bit of both. And the reason we have human beings on the stage for a panel is because we hope that there's some kind of interaction that has a spark to it or a flow to it. And so it's a little bit like improv in giving yourself permission to have a thought come and be curious, open, excited about the thought, but more importantly, to collide thoughts with each other. And so if you're having an epiphany live on stage, then the audience is having an epiphany off stage. If you're making a connection live on stage, then the audience is making that same connection off stage. And ideally, some of those connections are based on the nuggets of individual perspective the individual panelists are bringing to the table. So we want to have it not be like, first, the moderator asks this person a question, then they ask that person a question, or they just ask all three people a question, they just answer the moderator. We want to have some flow and interaction between the answers and statements of the panelists. Second huge one is if it feels like you missed the panel when you were in the audience the second day, something is very off. So panelists often refer to their prep session. They refer to, hey, last night when we were meeting up and talking about this, you said something like this. What was it again? Or last night, when we were talking about this before, we said this. And it feels like you missed the moment that the connection was made or the epiphany was made. And so there are two things you can do to avoid this. One is to not refer to any prep work you did beforehand. While you might refer to a meeting or something you all have had previously in the year, that's fine, but not one about preparing for the panel. And the second thing that you can do is not get too coordinated about it. You all have a loose idea of where you're going and rough agenda of what's going to provide value, and that should be sufficient. This isn't a scripted piece. Okay. Third, when we're making a panel be wonderful, we want the stories and juicy information. We don't want the abstract information. So the key example would be, instead of someone saying as an executive what sounds almost like a talk track that a PR person in politics told them to say, we are very committed to expansion in Europe and we are increasing our commitment to our partners. If you can't draw that, like, what is commitment? What does that mean? Being very committed. So what we want to hear is some of the drama that proves the message, and that's going to be a story that stands for everything. So you'll say something like, 6 months ago when we were meeting on the Europe strategy, we decided that of the 5 or 6 places we could expand, we've got to invest the most in Europe, and so we actually added 2 team members. We decided to do this event and bring our executives across the world, and we've decided to add the following tech integrations. That was what we were debating about in that meeting. Here's how it went. Or you'll say, here was the feedback that we received and how we thought about it. And I remember this happening, and so we're doing this now. What are you doing, George, in your part of the business based on this? And then he tells something very specific, like, we've had to assign new resources, new models, new processes. That's what they want to hear, is resources, models, processes, tangible things that have happened or decisions that have been made that prove the idea of the message, which is that we are increasing our commitment to the UK and Europe. So those are my 3 thoughts for a wonderful panel.